Is John Hankins. He initiated the first clean tech sector profile for Nanaimo and was Calgary's representative for the World Energy Cities Partnership. He's done great work around collecting good news stories, things we have already done in our region, highlighting some of the businesses that have got results already. So I give to you John Hankins.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to first of all also recognise that we're on the territory of the Nanaimo First Nation. And I also like to thank Sheila for organising this and my former fellow panellists, and also for you guys for coming out tonight. I mean, it's Thursday night or a long weekend and you're all here. That's pretty committed, don't you think? Yes. So I've done this sort of presentation a couple of times. I always like trying to change it up a little bit, but I always like to look at things from a global perspective. Okay, so I'm going to promote all of you. Okay, because politics is pretty interesting in the Nanaimo these days. So I'm going to promote you all to be global leaders. Okay, so you are now the cabinet, and you can decide who's the president. You're going to have a cabinet for the entire planet. Okay, and I just put you on a spaceship up into the atmosphere, and you're looking down on Earth. Okay, you ready for that? Ready for the challenge?
Go.
Okay, go. Okay, so what's your challenge, right? You've got 7 billion people currently living on this planet, projected to grow to 9 billion by 2050. It's not that far away. And there's lots of people who are living in what we would say below the poverty line, who want to obviously have the lifestyle that we have, that we enjoy. And why shouldn't they? Right? But if you look at the way the Americans currently live their lifestyle, maybe we could say this as Canadians, and you can tell from my accent, maybe the English is the same. If everybody had the same lifestyle as the Americans, they actually say, because it's such a consumer-driven economy, because everything's about GDP, it's about having more, buying more, even if you don't even need it. Right? What does that mean? It means you probably need 4 planets worth of stuff. Right? Well, you look around, right? We've only got 1 planet. So you've got 7 billion to 9 billion, you've got a lifestyle that everybody would think envies, maybe they don't, and maybe with Donald Trump is going to get even, you're going to need 8 planets. You're going to need 4 planets worth of stuff. So that's a very bit of a challenge, really. And then you've got this thing called climate change. Right? And the thing about climate change, it's not just affecting humans, it's affecting every species on the planet. Right? And it doesn't look at borders, it doesn't look at countries. I'm sorry, Sheila, but it doesn't recognise political parties either. Right?
Give us some good news there, John.
I'm getting there. But then also the interesting thing, now I don't know if I want to admit this, especially as a Trans-Canada Amity pipeline. I did spend 15 years in Calgary, fossil fuel capital of Canada. And then one of the things that's really interesting is that the debate has been very much around, well, you know what, you've got to have the economy, and it's a complete challenge against the environment. So if you go to the environment side, then you know people don't get jobs and it affects the jobs. Well, we heard earlier from Dave that he was saying about the number of jobs that are now being created by the green economy. And the UN, through their United Nations Environment Programme, they've actually issued a report recently and they're saying the greening of the economy it does not actually affect, it actually is a growth opportunity for people. We're seeing more and more people being employed in the green sector. Look at Vancouver. Vancouver's done a fantastic job of positioning itself as one of the greenest economies on the globe. It's in the top 10, right? And we're going to happen to be right next door to it. So there's a huge opportunity for Vancouver Island, I believe, to really leverage off what the great work of Vancouver, the reputation that Vancouver has. So before I abruptly left the Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation as their CEO, I had actually commissioned this report and it's got published, and I see that the Chamber of Commerce they finally brought it down here today. And really it's a sector profile that tells you in the Nanaimo region, we'll have some people from Gabriel, so it lists a lot of the different companies that are already working in this space. And I did one of these in Calgary as well, and the idea was to use it to help you attract more companies, but also for people to be aware of what's going on here. I mean, how many people knew that we actually have an electric vehicle manufacturer in Errington? Right? Well, a lot of people didn't. Right? There's some fantastic companies in, and I'm going to be Nanaimo-centric, that's where I spent my last 9 months or 10 months. But there's some great companies that people don't know about, have great technologies, and that like attracts the like. So when people see that we've got this sort of base, it's much easier to then attract more companies there. So 2 weeks ago, I was very fortunate. George Hansen let me off the leash and allowed me to create a panel at the YEA conference. I was able to attract 3 fantastic panelists. I thought I'd mix it up a little bit, so rather than just come along and do a presentation and, you know, a canned presentation, I challenged them. I said to them that Vancouver Island is now the new province, okay? And we were looking for our first premier, and the three of you are competing for the premiership, to be the first premier of Vancouver Island. So they gave a 15-minute speech about what they would do for climate change to be able to get a vote. And as we were just about to go for the polls to see who would win, we actually said, you know what, we need to do things differently. We're not going to have a vote. Because Einstein says if we use the same same logic that got us into the trouble, we're not going to get out of it. We need to come out with different thinking. So we need collaboration. We don't need like the Liberal Party versus the NDP versus the Conservatives versus the Greens. Between them all, there's the answer. There's the collaboration. There's the answer. No one party has the answers. We need to all work together. All the countries work together, and that's what's so encouraging about COP21. I did have the benefit of actually being at COP15 in Copenhagen, and that was obviously the year that Obama became president, and so there was a huge amount of like anticipation, excitement. But you know, here we are at the end of his presidency, and we haven't really seen what we thought we would see. When I worked with the World Energy Cities Partnership, 15 global cities around the world, working with their mayors to come up with the Calgary Climate Change Accord, and guess what? We put targets for 2050. Well, 2050 is too far away. And politicians, it's easier as politicians say 2050 because they're not going to be around. So we need urgent action now. So I think she's signing out some voice on email. So here's my vision. Okay, why can't we make Vancouver Island the greenest island on the planet? And let's actually help the rest of the world, right? By saying we can lift this up and move it over here. It's the poster child. Right, that's our contribution. And so I want to end before I get kicked off. Just think about everything you do is a choice. You have a choice, right? Sometimes we say, oh, we need to wait for the government to do it. We need to wait for somebody else to do it. Well, you know, every single decision you make, every single day defines who you are. And if you think about the lifestyle you're having, is your lifestyle actually making the planet worse or better? And every time you make a decision, think about that. So with that, I'll get kicked off.
John, and we're going to save as much time as we can for questions, ideas, so we're going to get these voices back up here. It's a good question. Our next panelist, very pleased to introduce